We are at 7 o'clock, so thank you all for showing up for the September 9th, 2025 GGD meeting. Yay! And thank you especially to Tripwire Interactive for hosting this. There we go. And everyone loved the pizza and wings. Much better than our usual fare. Thank you again, Tripwire. Always much appreciated. So, tonight we're doing lightning talks. So we're having 4 very talented game devs sharing their expertise. Really appreciate their willingness to do so. Before we do that, we have a few announcements. I will start with some GGD announcements, and then we're going to have some folks from the audience come up to give announcements as well. One of the things I'm announcing is the September 20th Siege Indie Game Festival at the Dorville Digital Studios. We're going to have some of those devs come up and give their elevator pitches. They've been practicing these. They got to do them quick. This is a lightning night. So we want to be 2 sentences, no more than a minute. We'll cut them off in a minute. People can throw stuff, throw Zeds at them, whatever, headshot, whatever's needed in order to get them off the stage when the time comes. So September 20th, come out to the Dorville Digital Studio. We have, I believe, something like 20 exhibitors there. Some very cool games. A lot of games we haven't had at past events. So very excited about that. Then on October 29th, Siege itself, the Siege panels, will be at the Esports Summit as part of Games Week Georgia. Look up Games Week Georgia. Lots of good events going on, including the Creator Summit, Girl Gaming, and more. But we will be having panels on AI, VR, game art. We'll have an incredible Founders panel. You're the first to hear about this one. This is going to be awesome. We have a Founders panel, including Alan Wilson, one of the founders of Tripwire Interactive. Todd Harris, who's founded Skillshot, was the original CEO over at High Res Studios. We'll have Annie Eaton from Futurist, and we'll have one of the founders of Blue Mammoth as well. So come hear their stories. That's going to be our main keynote plenary panel for Siege at the Esports Summit. And of course, October 31st through November 2nd, we'll be at DreamHack. October 31st will be our Siege College Fair. Any of you, it's free if you're a high school student or teachers. Bring them on out, and we get you massive discounts for the high school students to attend DreamHack. And secret for you high school teachers, we can get you in free to all DreamHack weekend if you attend the college fair. So make sure you are checking out siegecon.net for that. And of course, the Indie Playground, there'll be about 60 indies there. About 30 of them will be part of the Siege Indie Playground. So use code GGDA at DreamHack Atlanta in order to get a 15% discount. Now, if I could get the GGX team to come on up, introduce yourselves. And while they're coming up here, everyone who's going to be showing at the Indie Fest, come over here, do your elevator pitch. Line up over here behind them. All right, so first of all, yay! All right, tell us about GGX and who you are.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jung. I am a college student at Georgia Tech and also the president of Georgia Tech's game development club, VGDev.
Hi, I'm Yoon, former game producer at PlayStation. Talking about GGX real quick, if you want this a little bit of time.
Yeah, so GGX, or Georgia Game Development Expo 2025, is a new conference and exhibition event for game developers in Georgia and in the Southeast region. It will be on November 15, 2025, so 2 weeks after DreamHack Weekend, and it will be at the Georgia Tech Exhibition Hall. Would you like some more detail?
Yeah, so it'll be November 15th, as mentioned. So plenty of time for you guys if you've got games or things that you want to demo. I'm sure plenty of you here are ready to go for SiegeCon, so bring your build there. It'll be right after. So we'll have an exhibition hall. Those of you who have those games who want to showcase are free to sign up. We've got a sign-up form. Come look for me after this meeting. I'm happy to help assist there. We also have a website that I'm also happy to point towards. In addition to that, we will have panels, workshops. If any of you guys have any knowledge, experience, things that you'd like to share, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to assist. But outside of that, yeah, it's free admission. If you hop on our website, ticketing is done through the Georgia Tech ticketing system, so should be a good time there. Any questions? Sounds good. All right. Yep.
Come on up. Y'all come on around. We'll do this quickly. Remember, lightning time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ezra. You'll be hearing a bit more from me later, but I am here representing Dollworks Interactive. We made a game called Name Change Simulator that is a visual novel that helps you fill out name and gender change applications. You talk to an ID expert named Lauren Ipsum. Yes, we could not think of a name. You get a ready-to-file PDF of all of your forms downloaded to your desktop automatically. We're in active development. We had version 1 launch back in June. We had over 16,000 views on TikTok. And we're currently in the process of adding new states. We're a volunteer team of entirely genderqueer developers. One of them is here with me. And we are doing this game for free because we want this to be a very useful utility for folks who need it, because it's a egregiously convoluted process depending on where you live. So thank you so much. Follow Dollworks Interactive on itch.io and TikTok to see new updates.
My name is Gary Dawkins. My game is called Battle for Lumani, and it's, if anyone ever played Kongai on like the old Congregate site, it's a lot like Kongai. It's a turn-based fighter, but it's a little more than that, than like Kongai was, because aside from being a competitive game, it's got a lot of RPG elements. There's a lot of characters with a lot of backstories, and it goes into a lot of the history of the world of Lumani, which is my favorite part, is getting to know the characters and picking my favorite ones, attaching to one. So anyway, I will be at DreamHack as well, and so I invite you to come look, come play it, come experience it. It'll be on mobile, PC, and web and Steam both. So yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Hey guys, my name is Marcus Brooks Jr. Who likes Pokemon? That is half the pitch. So, what region they haven't done yet is Atlanta, and that is basically what Agave is going to be. The music will all be from underground artists from Atlanta, all people that I know through my producer KB, and the all 3D modeling and stuff like that. We do everything by hand. It will be more of a battle simulator similar to the Battle Revolution Stadium games, and it will be a hub system similar to kind of like Destiny 2 and Monster Hunter World. So if you would like to, you just got off of your job, you just want to play a few matches, you get in, get out, and there's still going to be growth. So that little Rattata you beat at the end is going to be at the end of the game. So every single FET, as they're called, will be a character that you're going to fight towards your journey. So there's stakes, and you're going to have to give your all, because there's going to be a lot of RPG, I can't say that word, a lot of RPG shenanigans that are going to make you very frustrated, but that's part of the competition. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Hey, I'm Posey, and I'm making S7 Cyberpunk. This is my ultimate love letter to my wife. What that means is I took everything I love, everything she loves, smashed it together, and it pooped out a silly sci-fi fantasy RPG trilogy. The first title is called Seneca 7, a Cyberpunk Odyssey. It's going to have the single-player co-op story mode we want, and the PvP system we like to have. And how much more time do I got? Done.
Hey, unless you want to tell them where they can find you. And we'll teach them all to add a third sentence on where they can find them. That'll be the next lesson. All right, so looking forward to having you out on the 10th. We do have great speakers. We're going to start with Patrick Fram, who was an excellent Siege volunteer back in the day, and we'll try and trick him back into it. At our next meeting, October 14th at KSU, we will have a Siege volunteers meeting. If you're interested in volunteering for Siege, email me at info@ggda.org. If you're here tonight, talk to Ryan, who checked you on in here, and we'll get you involved with the Siege College Fair and more. So, Patrick, if you want to come on up, we'll get this going. Lightning style. All right, and I'm trying to figure out where the best place to stand is.
Yeah, let me know. Is this a good spot?
Well, what I noticed where I had it set up, now that we had the lights showing up, it was really washing them out. So go a little to the left, get a little to the right, up and down. Actually, you
Doing
show
the
up
contra
really
code, is that
well.
what we're
Now
doing?
you're the show. Maybe it's the shirt, but you show up really well.
Excellent.
Well, at least the shirt shows up, and that's all we care about. All right, take it away.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks for having me tonight. My talk is called The Invisible Hand of Progression. This is about how progression design shapes player behavior without them really knowing it. I'm going to try to go pretty fast here, but I front-loaded all the important stuff, so hopefully if I run out of time, we'll have gotten to everything important. So first of all, who am I? I'm a cross-discipline game creator. I worked at Ubisoft for the last 8 years, and at the bottom of some of the titles I've worked on, as you can notice, like progression design sort of starts to come up. It's sort of become my focus in recent titles, and we're going to be talking about this specifically about this last one, XDefiant. Which, if you're not sure what this was Ubisoft's 6v6 free-to-play class-based COD-style arena shooter. It was live for 3 seasons, and it shut down with the with the studio, which was closed down as Ubisoft was closing down a bunch of their studio. And it was free to play. It was PvP, and it was specifically meant to go after the same niches as Call of Duty. And so I want to kind of talk about some of the challenges and solutions, to the progression system that I kind of ran into on this, and share some of the solutions that we had. So first of all, as far as progression goes, like what do we actually want players to do? These are kind of like the big ones, like that kind of apply to almost every game, which is that we want them to retain, obviously. We want them to engage with the game and all the different parts of it, not just one aspect of it. And we obviously want them to buy stuff in the store at some point. But a couple other ones I tacked on here, which, specifically to PvP ones, is we want them to behave, and play nice. And we want them to actually play cooperatively and have teamwork, because this was a cooperative shooter. And so those kind of ones were kind of important. You're going to be playing against other players, and you're going to be playing with them on the same team. So I think there's a lot of ways that the progression system can sort of encourage those bottom two, as well as all the top ones. So hopefully this will be relevant to most games that you guys are doing, but specifically if it's a PvP one as well. So the thesis that I want you to come away with today, if there's anything you can remember, is that I think progression design is like the strongest tool you have to guide player behavior. The reason is this is you have all the stuff. You make the candy trail that the players have to follow. You have all the prizes. You tell them what to do to get all the stuff. And so instinctively to progress in the game, they kind of have to engage the progression systems. And so I think it's really important to understand that like the way you build that is going to shape how the players actually interact with the game. For example, here, you have all the XP. You decide what actions complete challenges. You decide which actions generate fireworks. I use that term a lot here. That's like when a slot machine is sort of like dinging, like flashing lights and animating. It's things that aren't actually a real reward, but they light up the dopamine receptors in your head. That's part of the progression system as well. And you also decide what actions get broadcast to other players. What they know about and what they don't. Players are gonna you can balance and direct balance and direct engagement, because you determine where the XP is and what they're going to go after to try to get more. You also shape the play styles of those players by determining what actions and strategies are actually valid, by which ones actually pay out and progress the game. And obviously you manage retention and burnout by deciding how often they're getting these rewards and how long they have to play the game to get them. So all of these things are part of the progression design. And so I think it's important to sort of, be aware of these things and know how you can use this to manipulate players into behaving nicer and engaging with the game the way you want them to. So a concept I kind of think about here is the carrots and sticks of development. You have sort of like incentives and also disincentives that are part of the progression system. So obviously you have the actions that'll make the progression go quicker, things that'll get recognized, social recognition. That's you determine kind of where players sit on the leaderboard, based on what score they're getting, and the fireworks again. But you also have the reverse side of this. You can discourage behaviors by having it slow down progression. You can also, I put social embarrassment in here. That's kind of a harsh term, but being at the bottom of the leaderboard, for example, where everyone can see that you're the last player in last place, that's discouraging. No one wants to do that. And so by designing the score system, people will instinctively want to climb out of that last place thing. And also discouraging fireworks. That could be a narrator, saying that, that don't do that, or even just sound effects that's, sad trombone sound effects or the equivalent, to kind of, show players that are not doing what they're supposed to do. And then also, of course, note that warnings and sanctions, it's not really part of progression. That could probably be its own entire talk about that, but that's also, that's your heavy hand for actually, banning players or other things like that are, responses to, extremely bad behavior. So one of the biggest challenges that we had here with XDefiant is we were actively courting Call of Duty's audience, which is notoriously toxic. These are players that are going to be trash talking. They're going to be having offensive names from time to time. They're going to be playing very selfishly, and instead of working on a team. And they also, because of what the content creators do, the content creators mostly want to get clips of kill streaks. They're going to be emulating those, and they're also going to be just trying to go after clips and kill streaks and stuff like that, and not really engaging with the game modes that we're setting up. So we didn't want to be too different from COD, but we wanted to try to correct some of those behaviors as well. So one of the biggest solutions for this was a teamwork-focused score system that I designed. So I kind of came up with these 2 golden rules for the score design, which is that like every action was scored based on its objective usefulness to the team. So for example, like getting a headshot, for example, is the rest of the team doesn't care that you got the headshot. They just care that you killed the guy. So I didn't actually award any extra score for stunts like that, like getting aerial like jump shots, kill streaks even, headshots, a lot of those things. They didn't actually increase your score. What the score was increased by was things that helped the rest of the team. Like I mentioned here that save your kills instead of revenge kills. Like a revenge kill's too late. You didn't help the team. They already were killed. It's better to actually save the teammate from dying in the first place. As well as like a bodyguard bonus, which is like I increase the score for when you're doing things near your team's MVP, sort of encouraging you to sort of play, actually guard the guy you're supposed to guard. And also gave a lot of points for objective score. This is sort of like the ideal way that the score would break down, where the score was sort of equal thirds of offensive things like killing, support like healing and blocking, and objective score, which is actually like doing what the mode is telling you to do. These were meant to be in equal balance, so that you couldn't just do one and expect to be at the top of the leaderboard. You kind of had to do a mix of all of them, and actually play the game instead of just run around shooting people. Another big way that I reinforced this was with the rank mode calculation. The rank mode calculation, it did feature personal score, but the win and loss outcome was like much heavier factored into it. So you couldn't really just play for yourself and try to be the best on the team. You actually needed to make your team win. So that was a big part of like getting players to be actually care about the outcome and play towards the mode. And also, minor note here that like skill rating was treated like a handicap, so that even though the teams might be unbalanced, it kind of threw a bone to the weaker teams and made it so that it wasn't really beneficial to stomp with a heavily stacked team against teams of people who are lower skill. And another big one was I called it win boosts, but basically if you kind of look at this like fake data right here, in the different ranks, your wins were worth more rank points than your losses were in the negative, and it really only became zero sum at the high ranks. What this allowed is that players, like really good players in the low ranks, would fly through it really fast because they'd be getting lots of wins and shooting up the ranks, and so they would kind of clear out of those lower ranks. But also, players that were kind of bad and would lose just as often as they would win could still actually climb those ranks up to a certain point, so that they would actually get to feel some progression and didn't feel like they're just stuck at the bottom of the ladder the whole time. That was sort of how we would deal with the skill gap. I want to show some of the scoreboard design, because this also sort of reinforces a lot of the behaviors we want. We specifically put assists and objectives and support as columns on the scoreboard to kind of reinforce that those things are important. And so that when you are someone who is doing a lot of support, even though this guy's the worst guy on the team, the whole team knows that he's the one who's actually healing people and helping out. And you saw a lot of this on because of the objective score column, you'd see a lot of conversation on our community forums and stuff like that of people, complaining like, hey, I had the most objective score. Everyone else should be like trying to get like high objective score. I need other people to like actually push the package, actually capture the zones, And so some players would treat that like their scoreboard. They didn't really care about the final score. They just wanted to be the one with the highest objective score, so because to them that would feel like they were the most helpful in their team. But to also we didn't want to like completely eschew competitive, so the scoreboard was still ranked from best to worst, so that players who are competitive could still compete for that top ranked, but it never really says first, second, third. It was sort of just implied by the order on the thing, so it wasn't really trying to like shame people too hard, but it let competitive players sort of compete for those top spots. With the end of match design, again, like this was also, it doesn't say it, but it's ordered from best to worst. So it wasn't really calling them out like too bad on what your place was, but if you played the game enough, you would kind of get a sense that you would know that the leftmost spot is the first place guy. So you can kind of still be competitive without it like, shaming people too much. It also, this highlight system here, it would show off the achievement that each player sort of was the best at. So kind of letting you like shine even though you weren't the best player. Like, this guy was the best at this guy was the best at mag barrier blocking, for example. Even though he's the last place guy, everyone knows he's the guy who's putting all those shields up and was blocking all the things for us. Another innovation I kind of had here is these joke highlights. Like this guy's highlight is just that he showed up, because the system couldn't find anything good enough for him, and so I'd kind of like lightly tease you if I couldn't find one for it. And the community actually loved that. It was hard for me to get that through development because the directors didn't think that was going to fly. But I would see so many screenshots of people showing off the joke highlights that they would get and be like, "Does this game just bust my chops for not doing anything?" So that's kind of that social embarrassment thing where it's like, yeah, like maybe actually do something next time. Maybe go after the objectives like these other guys who got zone captures and things like that. But that was a way to kind of reinforce the behavior that we're looking for. Another challenge that we ran into is like we wanted to have a lot of different modes, but we wanted those to be like balanced across them. Like we didn't want there to be one mode that like that's where all the XP is and you should go in that one, because then that would just that would result in other modes being empty and barren. But they all have different lengths of time and they all have different like actions that you're trying to do. And so how did we balance that and make sure that they were so that all the modes were valid? Because you don't want your team like spending all this time on a game mode that then like no one plays. So how I did that, dealt with that was this mode-dependent score bonus system. So, for example, like a kill is worth 100 points in every mode, but different modes had different score bonuses that would stack up with it, and those would be used to kind of, not only just balance the score per minute for all these different modes, but also sort of incentivize, or I guess remind players like what they were actually supposed to be doing. One that I think was kind of interesting is team deathmatch. Was an interesting challenge. There is no objective score opportunities in team deathmatch because you're not doing anything that you're not doing in all the other modes. There's no zones to capture, there's no flags to grab. So how do we make that mode actually generate enough score to be competitive with all the other ones? What I did is add this kill streak bonus. So every kill you get adds an extra 50 to the kill streak bonus. And if you keep that kill streak going, your basic kills are just going up and up and up in score point wise. And the reason that's cool is because in team deathmatch, one of the things you do want to discourage people from doing is dying a lot, because that's feeding points to the other team. And so this kill streak bonus sort of incentivizes that you want to stay alive. You have to help out, but you also need to stay alive, or your kill streak bonus is going to get reset. So that bonus alone basically made up that entire 1/3 of the objective score, chunk on that graph. That worked really well. For objective modes, what I did is I added a bunch of objective based kill bonus or score bonuses to it. So for example, like if I'm killing a guy who's actually near my flag, that would actually add a defensive bonus. If I'm near the flag carrier, for example, that would add the bodyguard bonus. Or if I'm killing someone who's actively grabbing the flag, it's an interruption bonus. So there's all these extra skills points that you get for actually playing the mode properly. And I had a guy on the team actually that in playtest, he would always complain to me, he'd be like, "Patrick, the score system's broken. I was like, I had the most kills and I'm not in first place on the scoreboard, but I know that he just sits in the base and just snipes and he doesn't actually do the objectives at all." And I was like, "No, that's working as intended." You need to get off your ass and actually help. And in no respawn modes, that was another big challenge, because if you can't respawn, you might only get to have like 1 or 2 kills and then you get knocked out. And so to make that competitive score-wise with the other ones, I add this big old elimination bonus. So every kill you get was just worth way more than normal in that mode. And so that kind of made up for the fact that you're not getting very many of them, and you're spending a lot of time dying or being dead and just watching other players play in that mode. And that applied to all the support things as well, like healing and blocking and stuff also had these extra, bonuses that only applied in that mode to kind of jack up the score for those modes and put them on par with all the other ones. Another solution was to balance this was metric analysis. Basically, I used the metrics that we captured from playtests and from early like beta to balance the score. So for example, this is fake data, but if these were 4 of our modes and these are sort of the score per minute that each of them are clocking in on, what I would want is I'd want them to all be the same, so that every mode basically is generating the same amount of score per minute, because the score per minute is becoming your XP per minute, and so they're kind of analogous. And so the way that I would do this is I would just sort of put all the score of all the XP events in one big old spreadsheet. Use the data value they have, and then the sort of the average score per minute that we actually see from the data. And what you could do is you can pretty much pick a new value and automatically know what the new score per minute is going to be. And so all you have to do is sort of like fool around with those numbers, and you can visually see what would bring all those different graphs in line. And that was the way that we balanced all these different modes and with just the math. Another solution was, and this is more like once everything's balanced, like how do we actually like steer players around and get them to go where we want to? We had a live configs XP bonus system so that we could just sort of, without actually updating the game, I could just say, okay, right now there's a double XP event for the escort mode, for example. And so it automatically sort of funnels people towards that mode. So if we have a mode that's underperforming or is new that we want people to try, that's an easy way to do it that the players will just automatically now gravitate towards, even if it's a mode that is fairly unpopular. And then for event modes, like we had a Rain Man mode that was a completely new game mode. That one was just balanced high to begin with because we knew it was only going to show up for that one event. It didn't need the extra XP bonus on top of it. It just clocked in higher than all the other ones to begin with. And so it automatically, players can feel that, yeah, I'm getting more bang for my buck by playing these modes. And the UI is sort of, saying that there's an event going on. And so that was a way that we could sort of, drive players towards modes that we needed to. So they're not just playing team deathmatch over and over again. Another challenge we ran into was how do you sequence equally powerful gear? All the gear in the game was meant to be equally sort of competitive. Every attachment and every gun and every faction, they're all meant to be playable and competitive. And so with every gun being equal, how do you put those in an unlock sequence? Because players are already going to automatically assume if you do a Call of Duty style sequence that the ones at the end are the best. The way I did this is sort of, I completely delinearized the unlock sequence. So instead of it being one big track, I kind of split this up into lots of different tracks, and everything was unlocked via challenges. So for example, if you wanted to get more shotguns, you'd have to do shotgun challenges to unlock more shotguns. So you automatically are getting the gear that applies to your play style. And if you don't care about sniper rifles and you never want to do the sniper rifle challenges, that's fine. The only thing you're missing out on is more sniper rifles, which you probably didn't want anyway. And for when you do have like several that are in like a small little progression or whatever, the way that I kind of squared that was that I always sequenced in increasing complexity. So in this example, like you might have a silencer that raises your like stealth but like lowers your like ADS time or whatever. That would go first because it's simple, whereas one that raises 2 stats and drops 2 stats would be further down the line. And ones that have additional controls, like a toggle that like flips it into night vision, would be towards the end because those are just more complicated, and we'll save those for later. Let me just skip to the end here. So like I want to talk about real quick like what happens when you run out of progression, because we actually got to do a really interesting experiment here where at the very end of XDefiant's life we just unlocked everything for the whole game to see what would happen. And at first that generated a lot of buzz and players were happy to re-engage with the game and jump back in, but it very quickly turned to boredom because players were just like, but what do I do now? Like what do I how do I get stuff? Because there's nothing left to get. And all of the cosmetics that sort of showed that you were a high performing player, everybody had those now. So now nobody's special because everyone's special. And so I think it was a great case study of seeing like how quickly energy for the game sort of died as soon as we unlocked everything, sort of reinforcing how important it is to actually have progression and lock those things up. So some final takeaways, always consider how the progression design sort of affects that player behavior. You always need to have like those moment-to-moment incentives as well as long-term ones, and you want to tune with your data instead of sentiment. Players will always say they want things faster. They'll always say, I don't even want things locked in the first place. They're wrong. They actually do want that, but they don't know it. And when in doubt, tune your progression slower because you can always crank it up, but you can't crank it down without people noticing and complaining about it. And so my final thought is that if you're doing and players will never really acknowledge a progression system unless there's a problem with it. So it is a kind of a thankless job, but it's I think one of the most important ones in design for something like this. So thank you so much, guys.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Excellent. Ezra, if you want to come on up. So, progression is one of the keys to games. The progression chart we always teach is one of the number one things everyone should understand about games, but making it come together is here. So, take it away, Ezra.
Hi, everyone. Let me back this up a little bit. So, show of hands. For everyone in the crowd, who here is an artist? Okay. Raise your hand if you're not an artist. Okay, keep your hand raised if you're not an artist, but you do work with artists. Okay, I just want to say on behalf of all artists everywhere, I am so sorry for the headache. I know we're hard to work with, but this is going to be a talk about art in games versus art in other fields. But don't fall asleep. There's going to be enough stuff for you here as well. Hopefully, it'll make working with artists a little bit more tolerable. So, real quick, who I am. So, I'm a motion designer of 8 years. About half of that has been in games. I used to work in casino game development. There's a bunch of the titles I shipped over there. Most recently, I was the art director, UI artist, and animator for Name Change Simulator, which I mentioned earlier. Wow. I also do a bunch of career education, arts education stuff around Atlanta with Asiva South, Reimagine, GGDA. Yeah. So, let's talk about what makes a good artist. But hold on. Define good. Because good is very subjective. But here's the thing. Art often carries this connotation with being particularly spiritual. There's something about artists that just is a matter of like connection with culture and people, and that is true, but there is a method to the madness. That's why arts education exists. I don't have time to give you an art literacy 101 course, but there's 3 main concepts I want to discuss here. Composition. This is the form follows function mentality behind art. Essentially, this is how the piece within its medium is structured to carry an idea or a feeling or an impression, so on and so forth. There's also context. This is essentially the time, place, culture, current events, whatever that both the artist occupies and the audience. And lastly, there's appeal. Appeal is essentially your target as an audience. Well, not an audience, an artist. This is essentially the thing you want your audience to walk away with. Do you want them feeling sad when Marlin loses Nemo at the beginning of Finding Nemo? Do you want them to feel happy when Linguini stops being on screen in Ratatouille? Essentially, this is the goal of an artist as a whole. In a nutshell, artists concern themselves with the question, does this make my audience feel the way that I want them to? For example, going back to Finding Nemo, that initial scene where Marlin loses Nemo, we get these wide shots of ocean. It's just dark blue. We get the surface sort of caustic, rippling tension of the water above him. But it's meant to be lonely and sad and isolating. And the way that those shots are structured provides that. So, here's the thing. With all of that in mind, with there being structure behind good art, I want to replace the word good here and instead talk about effective art. Good is a matter of taste, but in this context, we're talking about art that achieves its goal. Does this make my audience feel good? Does this have the fireworks effect that we talked about earlier? So, what makes an effective artist in game development? So, an effective artist can create work that reliably hits appeal, and design within their medium. A good poet probably isn't a good filmmaker, vice versa. Understanding the tools of your trade, trends, so on and so forth is important. An effective games artist can do all of that, can collaborate as part of a multidisciplinary team, just basically working with engineers, mathematicians, other nerds. Work within an established pipeline on a deadline because you work for somebody. There's a process by which things get done. Things have to be turned over on time. By God, I am sorry if you've ever worked with an artist who hates having something be finished. I hate working with them too. And lastly, you have to make a game that's not only harmonious with the creative vision for your players, you have to make a game that works within the realm of the game technically, because it's very easy to make high-resolution, beautiful art that just breaks everything. As an example, I have a friend who works at Third Floor. They work on The Mandalorian. They do a bunch of different movies and stuff now. Predator Killer of Killers, which came out a few months ago. That was all animated in Unreal. And that same friend at one point was given a scene for a movie that I won't name that just wouldn't open. It took 3 days to diagnose what was going on. Turns out, somewhere in this scene, not even on camera, there was a 1-inch piece of rope that was modeled that had 3 million tries. It would crash Unreal every time it opened, blocked production for several days, cost a lot of money. So we're going to talk about how to avoid stuff like that and why you should. So, in a nutshell, games artists, or people just working in that sort of space, have a lot more they need to be concerned with than artists who just simply paint for fun. So, we're going to do 5 cool quick tips because everyone loves a listicle. Number 1, optimization. Like I just mentioned, optimization is maybe the number 1 thing to learn if you want to be an artist in games. It is the most attractive, marketable skill. If you can show that you can clean up your work before you hand it over, that's something a recruiter loves to see. I mentioned the third floor thing. You also want to keep on top of just general best practices for reducing processing costs. Something like a full frame sprite sequence that's several minutes long is obviously going to be more intensive on whatever engine you're working in or whatever system the game is running on than something like a procedural effect, so on and so forth. So I'm going to skip through these a little bit. So when you're working in art specifically, assets tend to fall into one of 2 realms. There's bitmap assets. This is going to be stuff that is rendered. That's going to be sprite sequences, full motion video, just static illustrations, so on and so forth. Then you have runtime and procedural assets. This is going to be animations that are done in-engine. This is going to be shaders, particle systems. The name of the game with either of these is balance. You don't want either to be overloading your system. Naturally, a computer can only be processing so much at once. So when it comes to deciding between the 2, you just want whatever's not going to set whatever motherboard this thing is running on fire. If you're working in bitmap and you're working in something that encodes sequences like media encoder or handbrake, if you need to get the file size down, bitrate is going to be your best friend. Reducing bitrate, which is just the amount of data that's injected into a given frame at a certain sequence, is the easiest way to reduce file size. When it comes to runtime animations, essentially just making sure you don't have like 6 million particle systems at once is going to be very kosher, I suppose. Tip number 2, learn your team's workflow. So whenever you join an established product or join a studio or wherever it is you're going, because it's very rare that you're going to be just starting something ground up, that particular team is going to have their own way of doing things. So it's good to be flexible. It's good to learn on your feet. What you want to do in that sort of context is forget how you've done everything before, start doing it the way that everyone else is doing it. You want to make sure that you are following naming conventions. This is maybe something I end up screaming at an audience every time I do a talk. It's important not just to name your stuff, it is important to name it the way that everyone else is naming it, because 9 times out of 10, someone else is going to have to pull up your work and use it themselves. If you're working in something with a layer structure like Photoshop or After Effects, by God, name your layers. It's important. Other people need to be able to read your stuff. And if they don't have a convention, make one. And be concerned if they don't. They probably don't know what they're talking about. And ask questions. Be curious. Be a student. You might feel inclined to act like you know everything there is to know about what you do when you enter a new space. It is good to have confidence. It's better to be somebody who's flexible and somebody who can communicate and somebody who knows what questions to ask. That actually ends up communicating more confidence than if you just walk in like, I am the animator. Respect the pipeline. Does anybody work in production specifically? God bless you. I really do think you people make the world go around. So development is typically divided into phases. I'm not going to name these offhand because I don't remember them most of the time, but there is a reason behind this. Producers, or at least part of what producers do, is they keep track of everything that is happening, everything that needs to happen to take a game from phase 1 all the way to release. There's a bunch of different departments doing so many different things that have different ideologies, philosophies, understandings. A producer's job, or the production department's job, is to organize all of that, keep track of it, divide it into stages that essentially just won't break everything. When you're working in that sort of environment and you are told what to do when, please respect that. It's kind of useful to think of your production team as a team of architects that design the piping system in a house to essentially avoid clogs. Don't shove a shoe in the toilet, by all means. So there is a common sort of philosophy for artists that are coming outside of game development to do everything as quickly as possible. I've seen this from folks who specifically worked in animation before, because I think that it makes the team look good. But it doesn't. It actually has the opposite effect, because if you just hand your engineers a steaming pile of an entire game's worth of assets to put into a project, that makes problems for everybody. I've been on game projects that have been delayed by a month, if not more, because somebody decided to do something out of order. So don't do it. Listen to your producers. 4, source control. Always back up your work. One of the worst experiences in this industry ever is having to explain to somebody who is paying your bills why something that was done is now not done and has to be done again. Because if anything is true in studio development, time is literally money. And once you have to approach somebody who doesn't understand what you do and tell them, hey, something broke, your money's just gone now, it sucks for everybody, not just you. So avoid this as much as possible. There's plenty of great tools out there. There's GitHub, obviously, but at the very least, maintain local backups, not just on your computer, because computers die. We're all very familiar with this, I'm sure. Download it onto hard drives, external SSDs. Maintain a server if you're super nerdy. But beyond everything, just remember that redundancy is your friend. Naturally, having multiple saves of something takes up storage. Storage is expensive too. It's less expensive than losing a contract or losing a project or having to completely redo something and looking terrible. And lastly, this may be the best piece of advice I've ever gotten in this industry. Be cool. And I do mean this, like, I mean it as partially as a joke, but I do mean this very literally. The thing about environments like this is that you're going to be working with the same group of people for a long, long time. A couple of months at the least, oftentimes years. You want to be the kind of person that other people want to be around all of the time. Not just being a helpful coworker, but just being somebody who's approachable, pleasurable, don't smell. By God, we're all very familiar with that, I'd like to think. On the other side of that, outside of just being a sociable person, understand that life happens. This is maybe one of the more common occurrences I've seen in these sorts of environments. People are going to have bad days. Sometimes the job is going to suck. I know it's a dream job for all of us, but sometimes it sucks, and it's worth accepting that. I think one of the biggest problems you can run into in a studio project like the ones we're all familiar with is people who don't have the best conflict resolution skills, or people who might be more sensitive to somebody having a bad day. Really just knowing how to approach somebody and talk about an issue, resolve it, really move past the fact that, like, sometimes we just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. It's an important life skill. It's an especially important professional skill here. Be patient. Lastly, when it comes to approaching those sorts of things, just if I can give you any rule of thumb when it comes to just people skills, especially in a like tight-knit, deadline-oriented, we all really care about what we do sort of environment like game development. If you need to criticize anything, criticize what somebody's doing, not what they are. It's the best way to be able to resolve like just people having a rough day or just somebody kind of sucking in the office, so on and so forth. So, that was a lot. So I'm going to leave you with 3 main takeaways. Number 1, going back to those initial slides with keywords. Composition, context, and appeal. What I want you to derive from that is art is a matter of process. The value of art comes from process and how art is made. It comes from structure, the decisions an artist makes, so on and so forth. In game development specifically, that process is not just creative, it's technical. It's a matter of making art that not only serves your audience, but serves your team, serves your game, so on and so forth. Number 2, respect the how, not just the what. I think everybody in the world enters an industry like this because we love games. But loving games and wanting to make your game or wanting to open your studio is not a totally sustainable goal because it's an end goal. Learning to love what you do, not just what you make, is a really important part of the process. Falling in love with the craft and respecting the craft is what's going to carry you through and also help you make good work. Ipso facto, making work that doesn't set your game on fire. And then lastly, cultivate your skills. Soft skills are where it's at. Soft skills are what make people hireable. And if there's any particular soft skill that I think is particularly important that will make you very, very attractive to hirers like Tripwire, be helpful. Be somebody who just makes everyone else's day better, whether that's actually bringing that value into your work, or if it's something as simple as you crack jokes, or you just kind of help people smile, or you just kind of help people not have a bad day. In spaces like this, where you're trying to network and find opportunity, volunteer. It is literally the best thing you can do if you're trying to start your career or make a change in your career. Be useful to somebody in some way, and opportunity will follow. Thank you.
Excellent. So we've gone from design. I'm going to pull this over, get this in the shot. We've gone from design to art, and next is the technical director. You all see a pattern? All right. So, Brandon, we'll bring you on up, get yours going. I'm going to mess with the lights again while you're up here. Oh, we're holding questions to the end. Here you go. Love the mic.
Yeah, technical design, but yeah.
Design. Sorry.
I wish I was the director. I already have a baby face, so nobody's going to believe that.
All right, how's that looking?
Thank you. All right, so my name is Brandon Moss. I was also going to comment on how it's nice that it went from design to art, and now this is kind of like a mix. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but quick about me. I'm local to Atlanta. I do some music. It's a fun fact, so if you want to talk music after this, I will talk with you for hours probably. I worked on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 as an associate technical designer. And that's what this talks about. Like, who here has heard of technical game design before? Okay, so that's about what I expected, like half of it, because a lot of people will know, and then the other half will be like, so what do you do exactly? And that's already a question you get a lot in game development. I'm sure you've heard that from parents or what have you. I also graduated from KSU. This isn't really important, but KSU alma mater people. And one more quick thing about me. I've been in like a wide variety of kind of like game and non-game related jobs. So when I was in college from 2015 and 2019, I went to did internships at a startup in the Bay Area where it was like 10 people making a game. I made like Pong just to test their networking. And then I went to Southern Poly, which was like thousands and thousands of people to make educational games. So I kind of got like a little bit of experience with different sizes, which comes into play with technical design. I did some app development and casino development as well, so non-game stuff. But then finally I got lucky in 2022 and got some industry experience with Activision Blizzard and Sledgehammer Games. It's kind of like a big trickle down of owning and owning, but Microsoft bought out Activision Blizzard and they owned Sledgehammer and they made Modern Warfare 3. And Microsoft, yeah, and I was about to say, like, Microsoft, I didn't put them there for a reason. No hard feelings. Oops. So I noticed very quickly in college and afterwards that I'm not like very good at coding. Like, I can get it by, but I'm not. I knew like plenty of people that are just wizards with it. But I also knew once I graduated with my degree that it was a computer game design and development degree. But what that really meant was like maybe 5% design and 95% computer science and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I like the design part more, but I've got a degree that focuses on programming. And most jobs, even though I couldn't get them no matter what I had at the time, wanted a design degree for a design-focused role. But I got really lucky with Activision because they had a program called Level Up U in 2022 where they took 100 people that couldn't get into the industry and said, hey, join us. It has nothing to do with any firings that happened in 2021 at Activision, trust me, wink, wink. But they needed to fill a lot of positions, and they wanted to quote, their charity of giving everybody an opportunity to get into games. So 100 of us joined. I got in, and they set us off to various Activision Blizzard sub companies. I would say 99% of the people in this program got programming heavy jobs like UI programmer or gameplay programmer, just something programmer. And they were going to have another cohort the next year for designers, and then the next one for art. However, I got lucky and got a role that was mix of design and programming, which is why I now know what I love to do, technical design. So when I learned I was placed at Sledgehammer Games for technical design on Call of Duty, I was like, I thought this was for programming. Like, am I going to be designing? Am I going to be programming? And I had no clue what the actual role meant, and it will depend on the studio. So for Sledgehammer Games, my boss said, okay, if you like design, you can do 95% design and 5% coding. If you like coding, you can do vice versa. So a lot of studios will have a different measurement of how much of the job is design and how much is programming or scripting, because it's never going to be like really deep, like C++ graphics or engine programming, and it's not usually going to be just straight up, storyboardy design. But it's a good mix. So this is how I learned that I want to do design more than I wanted to do programming, is because I started off doing mostly programming because that's what my job was, and then I asked the lead developer, can I take part in more design meetings? Can I take part in like the design process? And that's how I learned. I love design. For Modern Warfare 3 specifically, I worked on the zombies mode, so I'm not in charge of any of the those multiplayer things that I definitely agree with. With the the toxicity, I worked on the PvE mode, but essentially I started to design the bosses in that mode and just the different game rules. And because of this role and because of this kind of like new spread from design and programming, now you have technical design, I got to learn something else that I love more than anything before. But if I had to have a description, because it would be kind of lame to have a presentation on what is a technical designer, but then I say, it depends. The technical, the general description would be, you create scripts, so you're still scripting and programming, and you're prototyping mechanics, but it's heavily focused on the early to mid designs and not the final polish. And I saw it referred to as the Swiss Army knife of game dev, which is kind of true, because with me, like I said, I wanted to do game design mostly. But when Modern Warfare 3 was about to ship, and they chuck these things out every year, I had to do bug fixes almost entirely. So it is a lot of like, oh, we need somebody to do something in this part of it. Do we get like a programmer? No, they're all busy doing the hard stuff. Oh, let's get the technical designer. He can patch stuff up. So it is kind of like a very broad description by default. But there's also some sub roles like gameplay technical designer, UI technical designer, but it's essentially the same thing. Every studio has their own description of how much that's splitting into both design and programming, so you can help out in both places and kind of be that liaison from one field to the other, or one department. So I would say, let's say you heard this or saw this and you want to apply to technical designer positions. I would recommend, having interviewed since the Microsoft layoffs with a lot of these roles, I would say that the interview process is kind of interesting, because I did programming interviews out of college for years and years when I was just doing, software engineer, gameplay programming roles. And they were all, C++, C# programming tests. They were no design questions. But I've noticed with technical design, even though a company might have more of a design or a programming function, they're definitely going to ask you both questions. For example, Rockstar, they told me that their roles for game design or technical game designer was just design, like you light scripting, but you're almost all design. But they still had me explain vector math and some of the stuff that Kennesaw State didn't even teach us, but I love Kennesaw State. But anyway, yeah, so you'll still have to learn some vector math. You'll still want to be familiar with your engines, but you also want to be prepared to answer questions about design, like open-ended, not necessarily wrong or right questions. For example, I was asked when I started Call of Duty, design multiplayer Monopoly. So, and I won't answer that because I can't remember, but yeah, it's just something like, or for example, more recently, I was interviewing with a company I won't name, but they said they're making a third game, and they said, okay, design a level for our second game that already came out. Like, what would you do if you had to make a level in our game? So there's a lot of programming questions, but there's also a lot of design. And so it's nice to not have to be a engine programming wizard or like coding genius and actually program out the vector math instead of just being like, well, here's how you find out if the player's in front of you. Use the dot product and hope, and, or whatever like that. It's way better to have a general answer than do the actual coding in front of people, especially if you're awkward like me and don't or like freeze up when you're doing whiteboarding questions. So just that kind of like only having to know the fundamentals and getting to stretch your design muscles is really what flies here. So yeah, I kind of already said this, but if you're working on your portfolio, I would not just have a GitHub full of like algorithm homework or something. I would have like a mix of blocking out levels in the design process and actually some programming stuff. For me, at Call of Duty, we had I never even touched the C++, like the underlying engine. They had their own engine, this is not proprietary, so they can't sue me for this. They have their own engine and their own scripting language, which is public knowledge. But I didn't even have access to the lower stuff, so I got to make levels. And that's essentially what Unity and Unreal can let you do, is just, if you're not good at programming or you're not good at like straight design, but you have an idea, just kind of block out that idea with some light scripting, use already made public information tutorials or whatever for the hard programming parts, and then just let your idea shine, because that's a lot of what technical design is. It's just light scripting and making game modes and levels in the editors. Yep. Thanks. And thank you for all the wonderful presenters, and Andrew and GGDA, and thanks for Tripwire. Thanks for not wasting, but 2,000 years of my, or 2,000 hours of college spent playing your games.
Okay, sorry about messing with the lights, trying to get the reflections right. And we'll have one more speaker. So we went design, art, technical. Now we're going to tie it all together. Security, everyone's favorite word, AI, and games. Kevin, whoops, let me get your...
Brandon, you're going to love this part. Until late last year, I was director of security architecture at Activision Blizzard King. So I'm glad that you released no proprietary information, because there was the part of me that was like, yeah, now I have to kill you. What's that? I did. In fact, I was laid off on September 12th. I know this because that's my daughter's birthday. I don't know. Make a full a web browser full screen. So I've been told to do this. This is a sop to my son who's sitting in the front row. My name is Kevin Stallard, and I'm a game executive.
Hello, my name is William.
No. What were you supposed to do?
And you gotta do it loudly.
Boo. I'm the guy y'all all love to hate. But this is where this ties in all the other discussions while he's trying to pull all this up.
I don't remember how to take Firefox into...
Right. So everything you've seen here tonight in some way ties into...
Bring the lights up. It's just getting crazy.
No respect at all. Who are you kidding?
Jeez. All right, so F11 is not a good idea.
So yeah. So. Do we have any technical people in the room? Did you remember to turn it off and turn it back on again? So naturally, when I present, all the AV stuff breaks, which is not too unlike my career at Microsoft.
We're not even getting their default screen.
I really broke it. That last speaker's so boring, you put the equipment to sleep. But I kind of wanted to tie in for our previous speakers tonight, because y'all all touched on a theme that I'm going to touch on a little bit harder. Talking about AI and game development specific. Hey, there we are. Woohoo!
To the rescue. Applause for Tripwire. Yay!
I was joking to the Call of Duty developer that my gamer tag is 420 sexy dude 69. But part of the challenge that I had in security, and this is where we started getting into AI, is the volume of data we have on abuse in the system. We're talking terabytes of log data ingested every day for just one game. Now you add Overwatch and World of Warcraft and Hearthstone and Candy Crush, and yes, it happens in Candy Crush. The amount of data gets stupid, absolutely stupid. So AI development, and I'm just going to sit here and pretend like I know what I'm doing with this presentation, even though I wrote it. We leaned on AI as a tool to solve these problems. All of security, when you get right down to it, is a data mining problem. You have the data, it's in your logs, it's somewhere in your system. You have to find it, you have to correlate it, you have to analyze it, and you have to make sense of it. So when you're talking about fraud and abuse and bad behavior in video games, I want to see chat records. I want to see, if somebody goes lol fag, are they being homophobic, or are they being a 14-year-old kid who doesn't know any better and it wouldn't hurt a fly, but he's using language that his mama might slap him for? There's a difference. When you look at getting rid of toxic players drive off your good players. If I get rid of one toxic player who's paying $20 a month or whatever, and I'm saving 5 other subscriptions in the process, that's a financial move I can sell to management. Go, this is a good move. You're losing one guy, not 5. Because if you don't get rid of that one toxic guy, the other 5 are going to quit, and now you've lost 5 player incomes. That's why when you're talking to senior management in a company, you always want to frame the problem in terms of dollars and cents. So going to what you're talking about with incentivizing behavior and keeping people engaged with your game, that's money. And if you can present that argument to senior management, they'll give you whatever you want. Oh, you're going to make me richer? Yes, do more of that, please. When you get into art and design, and this is, I'm going to go far deeper into this. This presentation is available on my personal site, threattape.com/ai-presentation.html. It's available for you guys to drill through at your leisure, even though none of the key, there we go. But getting into artwork and design, when you talk about art, when you talk about how you make people feel, when you want the player to feel this at this stage in the game, you want them to feel incentivized, you want them to have those explosions, those fireworks. AI can't do that. It doesn't know how to people. You know how to people. So you tell the story. You sketch out how you want players to react at any given point. The sitting down and writing low-level code, somebody says, I've never touched C++. As a game designer, you shouldn't. This is the game experience I wanted to create for my players. You should be telling a story. I was telling somebody earlier tonight, part of a liberal arts education, you learn how to people, you learn psychology, you learn management, what makes people tick, what makes them react the way they do to the stories that you're telling. That is a far more valuable skill that AI will never be able to replace, ever. The idea that AI is going to wake up and be sentient one day, no, it's not going to happen. And I say it's not going to happen because I watched Satya Nadella pull $8 billion out of Xbox gaming last year and dump it to the black hole that is AI. And then the layoffs happened. Ask me how I know. So when we talk about procedural content, if you want to sketch out a level, AI is great for that. Draw a general map, and then you put the finishing touches on it. You put the touches on it that make it into a story. Use AI as a tool to rough in a sketch. You provide the context, the finery, the art that makes players go nuts over it. The story I was telling earlier tonight, look at ARPGs in particular. I'm just going to pick on 3, Diablo 4, Path of Exile, and Last Epic. So, I mean, Last Epic and Path of Exile do some great things from a gaming point of view. They have some game mechanics that are next level. I love them. Quick, name a story element from either of those games. What's that? You go into Diablo, name a story element from Diablo. And everybody in this room has something to say. My preference, I actually enjoy playing Path of Exile more than I enjoyed playing Diablo 4, and my name's on the credits for Diablo 4. But what keeps a Blizzard and Activision where they are in the business is their ability to tell a story. Now, my beef with that, and I'm kind of getting into more AI stuff here, is that they just spent their layoffs getting rid of all the people who know how to tell stories. What? So, we're talking about processing, procedural generation. This is all roughing in the bones of a house. You haven't built a home yet. So when you talk about technical game design, I have an idea. I want to sketch it out. I want to rough it in. AI is a great tool for that. I want to turn that sketch into a finished product. You need people. You need exceptionally talented people who understand motivations and risk and reward, and when progression goes from being a necessary part of gameplay to, oh my God, this is such a freaking grind, I can't stand it anymore. Star Trek Fleet Command. Sorry, did I say that out loud? What? Where did that come from? So when we talk about, like NPCs, going from traditional NPCs where everything is scripted down to the level and your conversation tree is very linear, you have choice X, you have choice Y, which leads to another choice A or choice B. AI makes that multi-forked. Now you can take those NPC conversations and go wherever the hell you want with them. How many of you guys played Baldur's Gate 3? How many of you guys loved Baldur's Gate 3? Notice the hands didn't change. Now imagine Baldur's Gate 4, where instead of picking from a pre-selected dialogue option, you can actually do a text chat with an NPC and go wherever the hell you want with it. And everybody's going, ooh. AI can do that because no human can script out every possible response that a human player is going to have to an NPC presenting them with a dilemma. It's too nonlinear. That is a role that AI can fill. What it can't do is this idea of vibe coding where some guy who doesn't know anything about game design goes, write me the next best-selling Call of Duty franchise. It's not going to happen. I was playing around a little bit with Claude Code, and I said, write me a top-down shooter. Write me a Galaga clone. It could churn out a Galaga clone in less than 30 minutes. It was playable. Am I going to make any money off that? Is anybody going to buy it? It was a very rough sketch. But the human part of game development, the art, the stories, what you're trying to get the player to feel, that's where they're going to spend their money. I was telling somebody else, you take a director, and I just saw Sinners, so I've been harping on this guy for forever. But the story that Ryan Coogler tells, fucking masterpiece. Video games make more money than Hollywood. Blizzard by itself made more than the entire Hollywood entertainment industry last year. Give you an idea of scale. If you could go to a director who's somebody who knows how to refine and tell stories and pull those feelings out and say, I want you to tell a story where the player is just one more actor. And you can't control what they do, but you can define all the other actors in the scene. How many of y'all would play that game? Right? I know I sure as hell would. But you look at these guys that are driving Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Unreal Engine, NVIDIA, big multi-gajillion-dollar companies. Where the innovation is going to occur, where the stories are going to be told, where the real breakthroughs are going to happen, are with the people in this room. Microsoft's not going to do this. NVIDIA's sure as hell not going to do it. Learn. When I started 37 years ago, I was the guy sitting up all night writing code for Star Wars Mud. I was the guy sitting up writing code all night for Muds and Mushes Online because it was the only way to make the story happen. So when I wrote the Death Star in Star Wars Mud, and I actually got to code Darth Vader, and print shpa, because that was the state of the art in gaming at the time. It was the late 90s. That's all we could do. But to tell the story, I had to have it here. I had to write it down. I had to map it out. I had to block all that stuff out manually, and then figure out how to write the code to make it all happen. AI can do the code. You have to have the vision. That's where it is. So those of you in this room who are looking to create the next big thing, you are a hell of a lot closer than any of the companies on this list. Okay, come on. And this tells you I actually designed this website myself, which is why it sucks. The other part of it is, and it was something you were saying earlier about risk and reward and doing the math, and you had a spreadsheet. If you could feed that data into an AI engine and say, correlate this and show me a mathematical model that meets your goal, that takes months off your development cycle. You can turn around and do a better game faster. It's a tool. It is not an architect. It is a hammer. It is not a skilled carpenter. Says the guy who has done 7 AI projects this summer since he's been laid off at Microsoft. I'm a giant hypocrite. But part of my hypocrisy is I had a vision. I had an idea. I want to do this thing. Hey, AI, how can I do this thing? And then a conversation happened. And this, well, do you want to do this or do you want to go this way? Well, what about adding this feature? And as I progressed through that questionnaire, best AI advice I ever got from anybody. If you have a business idea, if you want to tell a story, go to your favorite AI engine, it does not matter which one, and say, I have this idea. Ask me 50 questions and help me refine this idea. And let AI go, well, do you want this model or do you want this model? Do you want to go this way or do you want to go? And as you answer those questions, hell, you probably come up with 50 more. But by the time I did that for my first couple of projects and the vision started to clarify, and I said, okay, what tech stack would you recommend to make this happen? And now I've had this conversation. He goes, well, based on the amount of data you're processing and the speed and the requirements that you have to make this happen, you should do this using this tech stack, and you should do this in Kubernetes and on AWS so you can orchestrate to handle more users. Technical. But it needed my vision to make it happen. And that's what I'm telling you guys. You guys have vision. You guys have an idea. Everybody I've seen walk up here tonight has an idea of what they wanted to do. That's the gold. AI is the tool to help you bring it there. Try it. Whether it's ChatGPT or Claude Code, doesn't matter. Get on one and start a conversation with it. Try to articulate your vision, because if you can articulate it to a non-sentient AI, well, first of all, if you can't articulate to a non-sentient AI, there's no way you're going to explain it to a development team. God bless their pointy little heads, one and all. And in case you want, I can say that because that's how I came up, was through development. But you look at the terms on this presentation, we're talking about computational requirements, model quality. Again, technical. What's your dream? What do you want to make the player feel? That's the vision you have to articulate. Future trends, because AI is so good at predicting the future. But you look at yes, the studios are going more to AI. Yes, the studios are going more into, I don't need to hire a coding team. I can have an AI agent chunk out code. That's true. Who's going to tell it what to write? And if you've ever developed any product using AI, a lot of the times when you try to give AI its own ability to reason and use its head, it's wrong, spectacularly so. Case in point, one of the projects I've been working on this summer is a replacement for the Dominion voting machines. Oh man, did it get that wrong. It's like, oh, you don't need to count paper. No, I don't think you understand. The law says we need to be able to count paper ballots. This is not negotiable requirement. Well, I can design this easily if you just get rid of this requirement. I cannot do that. It's legally required. That was a day of me arguing with an AI agent. Yeah, ouch. So like I said, I'm highlighting the slides. The slides available on Threat Tape, which is my Uncle Grimmy persona telling everybody what idiots they are in the security space, but it also applies to game development. When I generated this presentation, the big thing for me was having references you click on. So you want to drill down, you want to get more information. No PowerPoint slide deck's going to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go find it. And I've left some breadcrumbs so you can see where I found my information. But go and explore and understand. AI is not going away. And if you can capitalize on what it does do well, and you focus on what it doesn't do well, you will be positioned to succeed wildly. Because I'm telling you right now, ain't gonna happen with Microsoft. Next 3 years of Microsoft's gonna be new WoW expansion, new Diablo expansion, new Call of Duty, Guitar Hero 56, and then Candy Crush will still be making them $10 million a day, and nobody knows why. What's that? 20 years too late. They promised that on release, man. Oh. Okay. Elder Scrolls 6 or GTA 6. I mean, I think GTA 7 is going to come out before GTA 6 comes out at this point. And if you're wondering why I got laid off at Microsoft ABK, is because I'm the guy staying up in board meetings going to Phil Spencer going, this is a stupid idea. Haha, joke's on me. I'm the one that got the severance package. And again, my contact information, I would encourage any and all of you, reach out to me. Say, I got something burning a hole in my brain. I want to bounce it off somebody. I'm your Huckleberry. I'm happy to help. I want to see the game industry succeed in like it did back in the 90s when I got started, when games were shareware projects. Some guy who had a passion and an idea got creative, threw out a little game, like Doom. And we really advanced the state of the art. And I don't think we're doing that today. I think Larian being one of the few exceptions that comes to mind of a multi-billion-dollar studio that has churned something out. There you go. Okay, that's pretty badass. You guys are the badasses. You guys have the ideas. Use AI for the tool it is. Don't let it think for you. Don't let it imagine for you. You do that part well enough. Let it do the grunt work. If it tells you, hey, this would be a lot easier to do in Go or Python, okay, run with it. It's the technical expert. It's the one that's got all that knowledge memorized. Let it do what it does. Don't let it fuck with your story. Excuse my language, guys. That's pretty much all I had in the way of a presentation, but if there are any questions, can I go ahead and start the Q&A?
Yep, go for it. Let's bring up all our speakers. I said we'd have questions at the end, and we can do applause for all of them together. And we'll start with a question really early from Twitch for Patrick. You had talked about progression to avoid boredom. What do you recommend for, how would he phrase it, for keep it from being too tough for the player?
Oh man, well that is the balancing act. You always want it to be, like just tough enough where it's the way that we dealt with it in this one is because this was a Call of Duty clone. We had access to a lot of industry like experts, like actual esports players, and I was able to sort of like let them play the demo and just give them a sense of like, okay, you came in like second place in this. How much RP do you think that should be worth? Like, or how fast are these weapons coming? And they have such an innate, they've played so many of these games. They kind of have an innate sense of how fast these rewards are coming, and so we kind of used that as a baseline and sort of went like maybe 50% slower than that, and sort of saw if we can get away with that, and sort of just dialed it up slowly, to meet expectations. When I was saying like don't, I wasn't saying completely discount sentiment, because players will tell you, if I'm not getting stuff fast enough, I want more unlocks faster. You'll always get a non-zero amount of that, but if you look at the data, you can kind of get it to trend, towards a more reasonable, percentage of players of saying that, and so it was a lot of listening to sentiment, trying it out, just polling everyone in the office, polling these esports players, and sort of honing in on what the right pace was for that, so that it's it kind of meeting expectations, and you're not having these long deserts of not getting a new unlock. But it is sort of a balancing act that you kind of have to find with each game. There's not really a golden rule to it, but I would say start slower and then kind of ramp up towards rewarding them faster, and eventually you'll kind of find the sweet spot.
All right, we'll take questions from the audience, and I'll get you to repeat the questions, and I'm going to lay out more.
I'm going to add one thing to his answer because it's kind of like gummies. You can always eat more. You can never eat less. I'm also going to call out my son. How old were you the first time? Dad, how do I use an auto clicker? So if a game's not fun, they're going to find a way around it. And that's the balancing act, right? Oh, okay. Whoever wants to go.
So I'm very half and half with this, very unbiased, but I'm going to bring up two sides. I despise AI and art, in whether it's paintings or whether it's what you were talking about, implementing AI straight to begin. But I've seen it done cool when Fortnite did. They added the Darth Vader, and you could talk to it directly, and it will talk to you within guidelines, but it was generating brand new stuff on the spot. You could bring up anything you want to it. That was interesting. So I'm very half and half how I feel about that.
Ezra, do you mind if I take a poke at this before handing you the mic? Sure. This is actually, so you're talking about very uneasy with AI driving art. Half and half. Here's the way I would explain it, and then I'm going to hand it off to the artist who knows far more about it than I do. How many of you guys are musicians or into music? And what's the first question they ask you? What are your influences, right? So what are your influences? Yeah, you.
My first music.
Mm-hmm.
My influences are young thug Michael Jackson.
Okay. So if you're a musician and your influences are Young Thug or Michael Jackson, what's your music probably going to sound like? So if you're a visual artist and you're really into Vermeer and you start painting, what's your art going to look like? That's influence, right? Now think of AI as something that has infinite influence from infinite sources and doesn't forget anything ever. So when you say, make me something that looks like blah, it's going to go through its memory and think of all the instances of blah it's ever seen or looked at and make something heavily influenced by it. In that sense, it's mimicking human behavior. If you just outright, turn Mona Lisa into a blonde and say this is original artwork, I don't think you find anybody go, yeah, that's a great use of AI. But if somebody's influenced by Da Vinci, there are going to be visual elements. They go, hey, that looks familiar, even though it is completely original artwork. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll hand it off. We at DragonCon last week, there was an artist in the vendor hall who everything they sold was a digitally produced AI work. There was no creativity. There was nothing original by the artist or the person selling it. And they got booted. Yeah. So knowing where that line is between being influenced and inspiring a copycat, I'm with you on that 50-50. It's tough.
Yeah, so really building off of that, the other half of my career is in branding. And a question I nowadays find myself answering very often from clients is, why would I pay you for a logo if I can just type something into Copilot and get something immediately, practically for free? And the answer I give, which is always a good answer, is yeah, you could absolutely get a free logo that is algorithmically designed to look like every other logo of every competitor in your space.
Congratulations, you have a coffee cup design.
Exactly. It's going to be derivative, it's not going to stand out, and it's going to come across as cheap. And that's where I sit on the conversation around AI, there's a lot I could say. I could do a whole panel from the artist's perspective of like where AI is versus where it might be going. Fact of the matter is that if you use AI in whatever it is you're making, it starts a conversation, and that conversation is almost always divisive. So personally, where I sit on like one side of AI or the other, I know a lot of people who are out of work because of AI right now. I know that's a lot of the criticism around AI. There we go. The problem with like generative assets, like AI that specifically makes images, videos, audio assets, so on and so forth, the way that is marketed is that, okay, it can give you these assets almost instantaneously. It cuts down the labor and time costs. That's attractive. Problem is, we already have technology that does that. It's called Shutterstock. That has been a staple of studio development for a long, long time, and it does not have that same connotation. When we put out Name Change Simulator, that was the immediate question we got every time we advertised it, because there are people in the world who hate AI. There's people in the world who hate people who hate AI. If you're comfortable inviting that conversation, sure, yeah. But if you want to avoid it entirely, lean on things like Shutterstock, lean on other people. I think where I find myself kind of falling back on, like, how do I best explain my relationship with AI and where it's at and how it's influencing our industry? Everything goes back to that old adage about, you know, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a night. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. The point is actually engaging with your community and learning things. That's the point of the idiom. That's the space that AI is kind of infringing on, in my opinion. The best thing you can do in this industry, as well as like so many other creative industries, is actually engage your community. Connect with people. That's how you start a career. That's how you build new skills. And AI, personally, I see it on a very similar valence to motion capture in the 2000s. It's this brand new tech that everyone's saying is the next big thing. This is how we're going to make movies going forward. Everyone's jumping on it. And then we get like the terrible Jim Carrey Christmas Carol movie and Food Fight. And then it finds its niche. It finds its place as a tool within workspaces and development, but it isn't the thing that just completely reshapes everything. We're seeing AI in everything between Copilot and the NFL kickoff and just everywhere, not because it is providing that utility overtly. It's tech FOMO. It's following a very similar valence to NFTs and the blockchain and the metaverse. Like, companies are jumping on this because they don't want to be left behind, not because it's actually producing that value. So my piece of it perspective on that is keep on top of it, pay attention to the trends. Don't use it if you don't want to. I certainly don't. But just become literate in it and expect that it's a bubble that will burst at some point. So, yeah.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a story about how it's kind of existed in other ways. In this very game jam in 2016, I'll never forget when there was this trailer that came on after like 40 trailers. It was the most beautiful game like I'd seen. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. There's no way they made that. And, you know, we knew that because they didn't even show up. Like, it was like it was like they made Skyrim in 48 hours, right, and they didn't show up. And so it's like there's another company, there's like League of Legends on mobile, I don't remember what it's called, but Wild Rift, yeah. And so they had a company in another country that was making a MOBA with their assets, and they got it taken down, and they were just doing it over and over again. So like there will always be kind of like people that use the quickest way to get their stuff out on the market, but usually like at DragonCon they'll be caught or they won't be as regarded because people are going to find out. People found out where people were just based on like a cloud on 4chan or whatever a while ago. People will find out.
CoreWeave exists because it was a bunch of GPUs designed to do Bitcoin mining. So you've got this like progression of infrastructure being built for one fad and then used on another fad. Let's say AI deflates pretty rapidly. You know, we've got a ton of like GPU farms and server centers well built up. What do you think that's going to be used for next?
Free graphics card for everybody. The only thing I have to add to that, and I'll forward it out, is a friend of mine is an electrician that designs like the big Amazon facilities south of town, so on and so forth. Big electrical facilities. and he was telling me that right now, Plant Vogel out in Savannah is at about, it's a nuclear plant, it's about 35% capacity. With all of the data centers and AI plants and everything else they're building at the state of Georgia, it's going to be over 100% capacity in the next 2 years. Unsustainable.
What do you think we would end up doing with it?
Well, here's the thing. If they create power capacity to accommodate AI and the AI bubble bursts, oh no, we have power plants all over the place and electricity is all over, but we're consuming resources at an unsustainable rate, which is why we shouldn't go there in the first place. I think like the Bitcoin miners, you're going to find some people that own lots and lots of hardware that by the time the bubble bursts, the hardware will be obsolete. They can't get rid of it, and they're going to take it in the shorts financially, hard. That's my guess.
I live 20 minutes from one. It's fun. I guess like knowing exactly what will come next. To repeat the question, if AI suddenly just rapidly falls off, what comes next? I think answering that very specifically would be difficult. I'm sure that infrastructure will just be recycled for whatever else, but I think it's important to bear in mind that there is always going to be some big tech trend that everyone, especially from the top down, is insisting this is the next big thing. We need to get on it yesterday. We need to be tech leaders. And I think it's important to just recognize when that conversation is happening, always take it with a grain of salt, and just always lean on like the main fundamentals of like staying afloat in this business. Be skilled, balance that with generalism, and talk with people, work with people, network, because that will get you through all of the just highs and lows and just catastrophic bubble bursting action that this industry goes through every like 6 minutes, it seems like.
All right, thank you.
One more thing to add. I was, when blockchain was the big deal and cryptocurrency was the tech du jour, I was associate vice president at U.S. Bank. And one of the things they tasked me with is how can we use blockchain to balance ledgers between banks? How can we use this technology? And we came up with all these scenarios, and it was like, it's not worth the cost. It's just not. What we have in place and what we've had in place for the last 30 years works just fine. Do we really want to spend billions of dollars getting into this technology that I was literally the only guy in the company who understood it? They paid for me to go get my certified blockchain professional, and the more I learned, I went, this is useless. And that's usually when you can tell this is a bubble that's going to burst. When you can see that Microsoft is hemorrhaging $15 billion a year on AI, that bubble's bursting. Is just a question of when.
It's like Google using AI for search to make search worse. Now I can't actually search.
We're at 8:30. We're going to continue questions offline, but thanks to all our speakers.
He's had his hand up for a long time.
All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to kill the stream, and we'll because we are supposed to be out of here at 9, and it's 8:30. So go ahead and ask.
Yeah. Well, the last meeting we had last month, one of the speakers said that currently under U.S. law there is no copyright protection for anything generated by AI. So what would be the point of even using AI for this, since there's so many people against it and there's no copyright protection in the first place? Would that be the thing that caused it to crash?
That's certainly not going to help AI's case. The other thing you have to consider, and this is one of the things we considered at Microsoft, the more data you dump into an AI system, you want to look at user trends, and you dump user data into AI, and you dump European user data into AI. And then some enterprising European lawyer says, hey, under GDPR, you not only have to provide that information, you have to delete it on demand. How do you delete information out of an LLM? You can't. It's those kind of legal hurdles, because I say God forbid, I would love for this to happen, but if GDPR were implemented in the United States, bye-bye Google, bye-bye Meta, bye-bye lots of folks, and anything AI out the window.
This guy's had his hand up for a while.
Oh, sorry.
So this is a technical design question. So you create games. You're a puzzle
have like an RPG, you're gonna have an NPC that's gonna be like, I remember when the king wasn't evil. Those were good times, and that's supposed to build up the world, or it's supposed to give information, right? If you have an AI NPC and you have a player, you have to prepare them to like ask what the life equation is, or like ask what color their panties are, or something like that. You have to be prepared for them to ask them stuff like that. So,
I do.
yeah.
I don't.
So my question is, how do you see AI as like this kind of like ever-changing puzzle piece in technical design? Do you think it's like worth it? It's like, oh, it'll have create a lot of unique user experiences, or is it a bomb?
Well, I just know he's dying to answer. But I would say the most I use AI is basically like for like why have I been stuck on this script for like 5 hours? Please, I give up. Help me. But I have seen some really smart uses of it, like he was saying with Darth Vader with the NPCs. I don't necessarily think that it will ever replace kind of like a technical designer will always be better for figuring out where these NPCs go, because even when you have people, you cause a lot of issues. For example, in our game, we had a lot of NPCs in their behavior trees and everything, and Treyarch, who made the zombie portion of the mode, had theirs, and we had to make sure that when they interacted together, they didn't blow up. And so that was two kind of like knowledge databases we had, like our studios, how our stuff works, theirs, how theirs worked. And I just feel like there's always so many equations in a industry that's already pushing stuff out all the time really quickly and overworking their employees and stuff like that. It's just like, I think you might create more issues by putting outside technology into certain things. Like, I know that kind of like, I understand where you're like what you were saying about like it is useful for a lot of things and you need to be useful for a lot of things. So I think it's about like deciding where to put it in, if you are going to put it in, and like seeing how much money you would lose or by using it and it not working out. So I think that answers your question. I'm kind of rambling, but I okay.
That's your value. That's what I don't have anything to add to that. Your answer's perfect, but it's exactly right. You're the guy who has to decide where that tool fits.
Yeah, and then you already have, as a technical designer, you have a lead. Mine was a programmer, but you could have a design lead. So they have those people, and they have the producers, they have everybody deciding other things.
All right, well, the camera just died on us, so thanks the stream.
Thanks, stream.